So I just finished the Lightfall campaign, and I have a lot of things to say. Some great, some good, and some not so good. Huge spoiler warning, as we will be covering all of the following topics, and I'm not going to hold anything back story-wise. And of course, leave your thoughts on Lightfall down below, including your constructive criticism and what worked for you. I want to talk about the bad, or what the campaign could have done differently in my opinion, the good, or what the campaign does very well, legendary difficulty, Strand, predictions for the final shape, the third darkness subclass, of course, and finally, an incredibly wholesome story from yesterday in our community that I just have to share with everyone. So let's start with what I think could have been done a bit better in the campaign and why things played out the way they did. To summarize the campaign, the Witness and its forces attack Earth, they sweep everyone, and the Witness interacts with the Traveler, which shows it Neptune, and subsequently the Veil. The Witness then redirects its forces to Neptune, where we join forces with Osiris and the Cloud Striders to prevent Callus from securing the Veil for the Witness, which could lead to some irreversible doom. Now, the first issue arises with the Veil. We first heard about it 2 weeks ago from Rasputin, and now it seems like every character knows what the Veil is, except for us. By the end of the campaign, you still don't really know what the Veil is or what the Witness accomplished, but we'll get there. They also introduced this light artifact called the Radial Mast, which Rohan sacrifices himself to destroy, which I actually thought was a cool story point. But still, it's another artifact that is just sort of introduced without having any context for it. There's just a lot of abstract concepts and not a whole lot of tangible ideas. The ending as well does seem sort of rushed, and there's a lot of almost getting to something game-changing and then just sort of backing away with it. You can't really shake the feeling that we're biding time until the final shape. This is a bit out of Bungie's control, but I think the seasonal model and the fact that we have a year to kill until the final shape forces them to end Lightfall in a way that doesn't have too many immediate consequences, so that the everyday gameplay and story remains relatively unaffected until final shape. Of course, save for some seasonal story beats. Another thing I don't think the campaign does very well is it focuses really heavily on Strand, which is something that I saw Saltagrepo also echoing on Twitter. Now, we'll talk about the potential for a third darkness subclass and how I would handle it in a few minutes, but all in all, it does really feel like the story is hindered a little bit by its emphasis on Strand. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, though I don't think the campaign is quite long enough to justify how much time we spend with Strand. Now, we'll talk more about Strand in a little bit, but it definitely does feel a bit more like a side quest, like a sidestep from the main story. In addition to this, you see a lot of characters that get kind of sidelined that really feel like they should be an integral part of the story. For example, you have Xivu Arath, who just does not show up in here at all. Elsie and Anabray, Zavala, Ikora, Saint, none of them really do anything meaningful in this campaign. They're all there in the beginning, say except for Xivu Arath, but they just don't really do anything, nor do they really show up at all, and it feels like this is something really important that should be including everyone, you know? Not just this little group of people on Neptune. Now, I haven't really done the seasonal story yet, and I know Mara is very involved with that, but from the little bit that I've seen of it, it doesn't really seem like anyone else is, other than like Devrim and Mithrax. Although it's really cool that they brought Devrim back. I never expected to see him ever again. Same with the farm, but we'll see what they do with that. I don't know, it just made things feel more like a side quest than I think Bungie intended. Although, again, a lot of this is just an effect of them adding the final shape to the end of the release schedule, which is something that we'll talk about in a little bit. I haven't gotten a chance to play with all or even most of the exotics in this expansion, but the ones that we have seem really cool. I don't care what anyone says, this Diamond Lance exotic helmet for the Titan, oh, it's sheer perfection. You all know we love our Diamond Lances around here. This is just peak exotic. I love that it exists. I love everything about it. Unfortunately, though, there just aren't a whole lot of exotics. When Bungie showed off that exotic trailer for Lightfall a while back, I thought it was really cool because I thought that was just a little helping of the exotics that we would be seeing in the expansion. Turns out, that was more or less all of them. They didn't show a couple of exotic armors, and of course they didn't show the raid exotic, which we can't even see in the collections, though it appears to be a kinetic weapon of some sort. Maybe I'm just remembering things incorrectly, but this just seems like a very small amount of exotics for an annual expansion, and I do wish we got a bit more. And especially with Strand, I know they're probably going to delve into this more over the coming year, but I feel like there's a lot of potential there for some really cool exotics. There are, of course, a couple of bugs, which is to be expected. I ran into a bug where when I swapped my shader or armor upon loading into Neomuna, my Guardian as well as everyone around me was just stuck in these phantom loading forms. It's kind of funny, but it's definitely not intentional or ideal. You just gotta restart your game to fix it. Also, there seems to be a bug where you lose your story progress around the second mission, but I've only heard about this through John, so, you know, take that for what you will. Now, let's move on to what I think this expansion does very well. Lightfall has an incredibly strong start with the Black Fleet invading Earth, us boarding one of Callus's ships and taking a fucking Cabal drop pod down to Neomuna.
Being safe. can't be that.
What?
That was really cool. There are times when the story feels super apocalyptic, which is exactly what I was looking for in an expansion called Lightfall. The Tormentors are possibly the best enemy type we've ever had in Destiny. They are straight up terrifying, especially when you first meet them.
We got a Tormentor. Holy shit.
Oh, shit!
Oh my god.
He's coming under my booty!
Oh my god! There he goes! Oh my god, it's back, it's back, it's back, it's back, it's back!
This to me just proves that having new and challenging enemies to fight is just as, if not more important than receiving new abilities. I can't speak much on Neomuna as a whole because I haven't actually got a lot of time to patrol the area much yet, but I really like the aesthetic of the city and Neptune as a whole. Nimbus is probably one of the best characters we've gotten in a while. I love them. Rohan too, his sacrifice was something that I actually felt really fit the story. Though I will say, I wish we got a bit more backstory on the Neptunian city as a whole. The idea of humanity evolving without the Traveler is really cool, and I wish we saw more of that. We are also briefly introduced to Nezarec. I haven't gotten anything from the raid spoiled for me, but I would bet money on him being the raid boss. Also, the amount of cutscenes was something I really appreciated. There was a lot of them, sometimes having multiple after a mission. It kept the story feeling alive and moving. Getting a glimpse behind the curtain as to what Callus and the Witness were up to was also really cool, even if Callus's motivations seem flaky at times. The weapons that I have played with so far feel great, and I love seeing more vehicle combat in Destiny. I will take this opportunity to plead Bungie once more, please bring back Combined Arms or Big Team Paddle to Crucible. I think leaning into the chaos that is Destiny in the Crucible would just be amazing. Imagine flying vehicles like Halo Reach's Falcon, turrets, tanks, Bungie. Aside from Forge Mode and more Ahamkara, this is literally my #1 request. Also, Legendary difficulty was really hard with 3 people. We struggled constantly, and every mission had a bit where we had to wipe or reset multiple times. In particular, the big Vex room with the red thing that we dubbed the Red was really tough. While it was a bit annoying at times, the res tokens and perpetual 30-second revive timer kept us on our feet, weighing risk and reward when picking up a fallen ally. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how this Nuzlocke is gonna go. This campaign was really hard, but we'll get there after the raid. In addition to this, on the surface level, the new mod system as well as Guardian ranks, pretty awesome. I also love the new end of game screens and commendations. It's just so much more interactive and visually pleasing than what we had before. Alright, so moving on, let's talk about Strand.
Someone's ghost.
Oh, no! Oh, that was close.
No! I really like Strand. It's not perfect, and I feel the story revolved too heavily around it, but I really like it. It provides a very different gameplay style than anything we've had before. Also, people may disagree with me, but the Blade Fury Titan Super is really cool and feels very different to Fist of Havoc or Behemoth. But that's just me. I quite literally got the subclass like an hour ago, but the first thing I noticed was the grapple's charge time. It feels really slow upon my first impression, but maybe this is something that'll be tuned separately from PvP down the line. Especially when you consider that the grapple takes up your grenade slot. I don't know, I feel like maybe it should be a bit quicker. Otherwise, I don't yet have a whole lot to say about Strand, other than that I'm really enjoying my time with it. Now, let's talk about the final shape. So Bungie's original plan for the last 3 expansions in this saga was to have Beyond Light, Witch Queen, and finally Lightfall. Bungie then decided they wanted more time to properly finish the story and modified things to include a 4th and final expansion, the final shape. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that this Lightfall and this Lightfall are probably 2 fairly different expansions, at least conceptually. I would honestly love to interview or hear Bungie talk through what the original plan was post final shape. Were we originally going to get what would become Strand and the Witch Queen? Who knows? There's a lot of room for conversation there. In the final shape, I'm going to bet on a few pretty obvious things, although I think there's a few ways they could go. First of all, I'm confident that we will see major game-altering story beats and gameplay changes coming in the final shape. I think both the Traveler and the Witness will either fall or merge to become the final shape, or a big square. I am of course hoping that all of our established characters will come together in some massive warlike campaign with lasting consequences. Given Lightfall's ending, I'm really hoping there is still a war to come that isn't exclusively fought on a cosmic scale between the Gardener and the Witness. We need some tangible troops to fight and support. More than ever, after the Tormentors, I really want another enemy race, or at least some influx of new things to fight. Whether we actually see that, who knows, but of course, I think we all want it. A lot of you may disagree with me me here, but I both don't want and don't think we will get a new destination. I feel like we really need to focus on the ones we have right now and fight to defend them, Earth included, instead of Pluto or Uranus or something. If we do get another destination, I think the only logical possibilities, given the situation right now, are a big pyramid or darkness ship, something pertaining to Xivu Arath, or more likely inside the Traveler. I mean, we gotta get in there at some point, right? That and the Witness literally just walked in there, so who's gonna follow him? Finally, a topic I am very familiar with, the third darkness subclass, and should there be one? Obviously, we have 3 light, and it would only make sense to have 3 dark, but Bungie, if you develop a third dark energy type, the campaign cannot revolve so heavily around it. If we get one, I really feel like we should receive the subclass halfway or really early into the campaign, so we can enjoy it and not have the story suffer because of it. This next year is really important for Destiny's story, and I don't want to waste it learning a third energy type, as fun as I'm sure it would be. This may be a bold take, but if you ask me, don't make a third subclass, at least not yet. I would much rather that development time go into making an epic story that involves all of our characters with challenging new enemies and a satisfying payoff. Bungie, this is your 10-year plan in action. I've been here from the beginning, and the last thing any of us want is the story to fall flat. So should there be a third subclass? If you ask me, no, at least not yet. But will there be one? Well, probably. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. All I'm saying is look at Witch Queen. We can tell a great story and have a great DLC without a new energy type or subclass. But if we do get one, what do I think it'll be? I'm gonna place my final bet right now with no leaked information that it will be red, and I think it'll be called Ruin. I have pretty much nothing backing up that name. It just sounded cool, and they surprised us once with Strand. I think they can do it again. Overall, I really enjoyed Lightfall, although obviously it has its flaws, and there's still a lot more to come and learn this season and in the seasons leading into next year. But I want to leave you all with an incredible story from yesterday's stream and highlight just how amazing this community is. My friend Donovan, you all probably know him.
Oh, good. Google it, I'm coming. The fuck?
I'll suck you dry. Now give me your melanin.
He's been running on a PS4 for a while now. For a few months, I've thought about how cool it would be if I could surprise them with a PS5, but just never really had the pocket change to do so. I mentioned that I wanted to do this on stream while we were waiting for the Lightfall player queue, and within, I kid you not, like 5 minutes, people had sent in so many super chats that we could afford getting it for him and then some. He was on the call when this happened, and the stream is still up on the channel if you want to watch as everything unfolded. After an absolutely insane, nearly 30-minute super chat train, you mad lads sent in $1.6 thousand, including like 70 gifted memberships. About an hour later, we headed to GameStop and brought Donovan his PS5 just in time for Lightfall, the Day 1 raid, and so much more. Words can't even describe how grateful I am to this community for making such an amazing thing possible. I've been looking for ways to give back to my friends for always helping me with these videos and just being the best group of people I've ever gotten the chance to play with. And to do so with the support of everyone here is just incredible. Here are the names of everyone who sent in super chats yesterday, and an immense thank you to Shazam, Diggler, Ruby, and Mad for just a wild amount of support during this whole endeavor. I can't say thank you enough. Yesterday was just incredible. With that, I need to get some sleep before tomorrow. We'll be streaming 12 hours on Neomuna, which will be interesting to say the least. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate it. I know this is different to my usual content, but if you enjoyed, consider liking the video or subscribing for fun weekly Destiny content. I hope you're having a great day, night, or whatever it is, and until next time, Guardians, goodbye.